Stephen Yaxley Lennon, known to his hooligans as Tommy Robinson. Stephen, there is a crowd outside rioting against you tonight, and without the protection and generosity of a Muslim Palestinian president and a mostly South Asian executive committee, you would be quite literally cooked.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime.
Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish, in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Wednesday, 5th of August, Anno Domini 2026. Harnwell here at the helm on Steve Bannon's War Room. Let's bring in Frank Walker and Jenny Holland straight up at the beginning. Hi, guys. Jenny, welcome back, as always. I know you've had a couple of weeks off swinging the lead. Hope you're back refreshed, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go with your analysis. Yeah, you know, I'm lost for words. It's great. Okay, so whilst you, in your absence, civilization has been collapsing. I'll brief you now what's happened since you've been off skiving. Well, civilization has been collapsing here in occupied Europe. Start off with, images have been flittering. Basically, on anyone who's got a smartphone has been looking at the images and the videos on social media of upwards of 50,000, 60,000 North Africans, and not only North Africans, sub-Saharan Africans as well, pouring in via Morocco into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta, sovereign territory of Spain for about 500 years. And everybody thought, including me, well, this is what they're going to do to disperse very quickly this 500,000 in a tiny little enclave across the European Union, because they won't be able to send them back, because we've heard this repeatedly from our sociopathic overlords. And of course, only the War Room can turn a story about Spain and Morocco into one about phony Meloni and Italy. But folks, bear with me and you'll see why this is necessary. Because look, Jenny, you spend half your time here in Italy anyway, right? You grew up here. You'll know better than everyone. You can corroborate what I'm saying. Phony Meloni, who you like, by the way, War Room Posse. You'll always get a defence of Phony Meloni from Jenny Holland, right? Phony Meloni has spent 880 million of taxpayers' euros. What is that? It's about $850 million or something, with these repatriation schemes, deportation schemes, processing schemes in Albania. In her 5 years of being in office, and this is her big policy success, is that she's now established these centres in Albania. How many people has she processed via these centres in Albania, having spent 880 million taxpayers' euros? 111 people. That's what Phony Meloni has done. You wouldn't know that was basically nothing by the enthusiasm which she pushes this out on Twitter and social media to her adoring fans who, let me indicate, her adoring fans who lap this kind of thing up. But they're flooding into Italy, and she's got rid of 111 illegals in 5 years via Albania. Park that there. She says, well, I can't do any more, she says, because Ursula, because Dublin Treaty, and all the rest of it. And oh my, didn't our jaws drop to the floor when we saw these images of 500,000, 600,000, excuse me, 50,000, 60,000 Africans pouring in to Ceuta, because within 24 hours, the Spanish government, the Spanish socialist government, by the way, had kicked basically 48,000 of them back within 24 hours. They opened the door, the back door, and they said, out you go into Morocco. And Morocco, of course, accepted them. So clearly behind the scenes, because this could have brought around the collapse of the government in Madrid, I think, if they didn't handle this properly. Obviously, somebody in the Spanish government spoke to somebody in Morocco and made them an offer they couldn't refuse. I would suggest that, Steve says I always throw around my cynical beady eyes on these things, but I'm sure the phone call went something like, and who do I make this check payable to? And lo and behold, Morocco said, yeah, there are, I'll send them back. And they all went back within 24 hours, what we all thought was impossible. So that's what you have missed, Jenny, since you've been off on the sunbeds of Europe. What? What's telling the war room, oh, I'm working on a book.
I was, and I sent it in, Ben. I will have you know.
Well, Jenny Holland's been working on a book from the sun lounges of Europe, I am quite sure. Because you don't look this good by being in a basement on a computer. I'm not entirely sure why I look quite as bronzed as I do. You do. I can't give you an explanation for it, but that's not what the show is about, Ben. That is not what we gather here to talk Don't worry.
about.
Don't worry, my cynical beady eyes have their own theories how you look. Having spent a couple of weeks off, you come back looking bronzed and relaxed. I have my own theories as to how that's taken place. Anyway, so that's what's happened. And that, folks, to bring you all up to speed, that's what we're going to be talking about now. First half of the show, and usually today, we're going to bring together several stories together, thematically together, but not necessarily narratively together. And we'll just be talking about what's going on, specifically the relationship, the state of the relationship between the West, open brackets, the Catholic Church, close brackets, and of course the ever-present Islam. So that's where we are. Let's start off now. Why don't we Jen, I'm going to come to you, actually, because you sent in the video clip. Let's play the video clip again, which we played in the cold open. It's quite short, 20 seconds long. I think this is a perfect metaphor, of how the UK has become, has demified itself totally to Islam. Jen, I'm going to steal all your talking points. Let's watch it again, and you can tell us why you think this was so illustrative and helpful to inform the debate we're going to have on the show today.
Stephen Yaxley Lennon, known to his hooligans as Tommy Robinson. Stephen, there is a crowd outside rioting against you tonight, and without the protection and generosity of a Muslim Palestinian president and a mostly South Asian executive committee, you would be quite literally cooked.
So, Jenny, this is Oxford Union, I take it. One of the, like Cambridge University Union, one of the two establishment breeding grounds for establishment politicians, basically. They either go to Oxford or Cambridge. They go through, like our present Prime Minister, actual Prime Minister in this moment. They go through, they do their these two universities. Many of them join the union, hone their debating skills. This is where the establishment, the British establishment, hones its debating skills and prepares itself for public life. What did we just see there in that clip, and what's the importance of it?
So this was the opening of a debate that was held in June of this year at the Oxford Union, like you said, and the young woman at the podium is, I think, a member of the executive sort of leadership, student leadership of the debating society. And I believe she is South Asian. Her last name is Khan, I think. So I'm guessing she's Pakistani, of Pakistani origin. And the theme was, is Islam a threat to the West? And this girl, in her infinite wisdom, decided to open her remarks in which she was countering the motion that Islam was a threat to the West by gloating and almost in a flirtatious, provocative stance to the three white Englishmen who sat opposing her, Tommy Robinson, Lawrence Fox, and Jonathan Sacerdoti, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, saying that had it not been for her and her friends, her mates, her peers, good graces and generosity, all of them being Muslim, all of them being either South Asian, or as she mentioned, the president of the Oxford Union at the moment is another woman who is from Palestine, who is Palestinian. They would Tommy Robinson would be murdered by the mobs of Islamists rioting outside the hall where they were all sitting. And this to me demonstrates a couple of things. One is that the elite institutions of the United Kingdom, much like they have, I would imagine, in the rest of Europe, but certainly in the United Kingdom, have essentially bent over for a new rising elite that happens to be, if you want to be liberal about it, third world Muslim, second generation arrivals who feel very much entitled to the spoils of the culture that was built by people not like them, I'm afraid. It was built by ethnic English people. And they feel very entitled, in fact, like it's their duty to kind of saunter into these vaunted halls and these almost sacred spaces and say, I'll be taking that from you, thank you very much, while all the craven liberals clap like seals. Watching this video last week really was sort of, I could feel the last liberal sort of breath leave my body. It hardened my heart in a way that almost nothing has. Even as we see all these horror stories about the effects of immigration. And, you know, this is from someone who I am myself a sort of binational. I've lived as a foreigner overseas, and I've done all of these very liberal things. But I think what's happened is that the liberal order, and maybe more correctly, the sort of neoliberal world order, has created a world in which it was encouraged to crap all over the Christian heritage of these nation states. And so when these new arrivals came in, you know, going back several generations now, they felt no duty, unless they felt as a matter of personal integrity, which a lot of them did. But those who didn't had no duty to conform or to pay lip service to this society that was built by Christian values and that was built by ethnic English people at great sacrifice over centuries and centuries. And this is the upshot of it. I mean, when I first saw this girl, because she seems very stupid, like she seems like she's not very smart. So I'm like wondering how is she in Oxford Union in the first place? And her glib threats, her taunting, I just thought this girl is no better than an orc in a sparkly dress. This is a vile provocation and a sort of spiritual and moral insult. And just watching the three Englishmen sit there, and you know, this sort of wry smile passes over Lawrence Fox's face, and he raises an eyebrow. They're so used to being demonized. In the case of Tommy Robinson, you know, prosecuted through the courts and imprisoned for lengthy time and threatened and dragged to hell, basically, for standing up for their own countries as they see them. And yet they're constantly expected to sit down and shut up because there's a new sheriff in town and she's brown and she's Muslim. Now, this person is not worthy of the title. This person is not worthy of the post. This person hasn't been given the proper training and the proper education to rise through the ranks on merit. She got there through subterfuge and woke ideology.
Wow. Okay. So Lawrence Fox is sitting there with a twinkling in his eye, because whilst he's used to being ripped to shreds by aggressive audiences, he's not particularly used to. I've got to quote you on this. I've got to come back and bring this up. One of the best metaphors I've ever heard on the warm. He's not so used to being ripped to shreds by an orc in a sparkly dress. All right, look, I'm going to come. That was a superb analysis, Jenny. Many thanks for that. Going to come to Frank Walker in just one moment. First of all, however, quick shout out at this halfway point in the show to our sponsors. You may have heard that this week that the Vatican's asset management arm had said, in fact, it was on Friday of last week, that its operating surplus fell by more than 60% in 2025, but its overall wealth rose thanks to gains in gold, real estate, and investments. Well, look, folks, the Vatican's been around for about 2,000 years, has a huge asset portfolio. People always say that the Vatican thinks in centuries. If the Vatican is rebalancing its dodgy financial situation because it is buying gold, that is something that I would gently suggest retail investors should be considering as well. And who better to give advice on that than Philip Patrick and his team at Birch Gold. If you want to know what the deal is, find out why the Vatican is going all in on gold, as are, by the way, the European central banks offloading dollars and buying gold. Pick up your phone, text Bannon, BANNON, to 989898. Speak to Philip Patrick, ask him what's going on, and ask him what the options are for you, what you can do, whether it's advisable in your financial situation, perhaps to convert an old IRA into an IRA in physical gold. What are the possibilities? Philip Patrick is one of the best people on the face of the planet. That's why we push him here on the War Room to give some great advice on that. You can take the advice. You don't have to take the advice, but it's there for you. All right, okay. Frank Walker, what's on the themes of the Islamification? What did Jenny just say? She said that a neoliberal order had crapped all over the Christian heritage of our nation states. What in this week, in capitulation either from the West or the Catholic Church specifically vis-a-vis Islam, has caught your eye?
Oh, the church is united in the way that they're addressing these things on both sides of the pond. There's a lot of news in America about Texas mosques and about New Mexico mosques. And there's a story, Archbishop Wester in New Mexico is promoting the development of a mosque. And there's a local mosque community where one of his priests tasered somebody who resisted it. And they all come back to the same thing: religious freedom. Everybody has a right to religious freedom. And if you're a Catholic, you understand that because of Vatican II. Now, Vatican II is a recent council, just 60 years ago. But there are things in Vatican II that are not Catholic. Vatican II is sort of like a communist takeover, and they had a bunch of stuff they had put together, and then all of a sudden, last minute, it all changed. But it was never proclaiming any new church doctrine. And so the things in it that are not Catholic, like this push for religious freedom, they're not really, Catholics aren't really bound by them, but all of the Catholics that rule the church now, they pretend as if they are. And even in Spain, when they and Quito, where they had the 60,000 come ashore, they were still the same way about it. We need to, because of Vatican II and religious freedom, we have to do that. And I think that you ask, what are the relationship between Islam and the church and the West? I think the biggest theme is a sleight of hand, because, like we mentioned, the taqiyya says to be, not honest with people who aren't of Islam, and the bishops are the same way. They're united with Islam. The bishops are pretending to be Catholics, and so I think the biggest problem that the West has in defending, the only defense of Catholicism against Islam is in the people. In Spain, it's the Vox Party and all of the Catholic hierarchy and the Catholic academics. They're all on the side of Islam, and people are acting like religious freedom requires that we are gentle with Islam because they're gentle with us because of human nature and Catholic teaching. This is what they throw at us. But this Tommy Robinson video, you can see the message from Islam to Tommy Robinson is, you exist at our mercy. You exist at our mercy, and that's exactly the way Islam teaches. And so we wait and wait and wait until they've conquered. Like at Oxford, you can see that they've conquered, and then we find out what the real religion is. So religious freedom does not really apply to Islam. Religious freedom it's just an idea from the American Constitution that says you can't have a national religion, but it's been expanded all the way into Catholic teaching somehow. And now we have to pretend that these people that would have us either comply, submit as Islam means, or you will die, or you're cooked. And that's not a funny thing to say to Tommy Robinson, because I know it's over the top, but like Christ, he realizes every day that he could be dead. He offers his life every day. He is under threat all the time. And that's not something to applaud or joke about, but that's what we're dealing with. It's a sleight of hand, and we need to know who are our enemies, because they, like Jen says, they crap on Christianity, so we're afraid to defend it. But we don't realize the Catholic Church is our enemy and Islam is our enemy. And to pretend otherwise, that we need to give them freedom, or we need to listen to these liars and these thugs that are taking the place of the Catholic Church, these bishops who pretend in Taqiyya to give us the truth, is just a mistake. We need to realize who our enemy actually is. I mean, it's just so upsetting to see that, but it's happening over here in the United States all the time, and the Catholic Church is behind it in every place, in Detroit and in New Mexico and in Texas and everywhere. It's happening overnight, really, when you look at what's happening.
Frank, I noticed that the Catholic Church intervention in Ceuta, in that Spanish enclave, was everything it said was about the human dignity of the invaders. There was nothing whatsoever about the dignity of hardworking Spanish who would have to pay for this, even though many Spanish working class regular Spanish people can't make it to the end of the month. No dignity reference to them. Tell me again what you said at the beginning about this bishop, the Archbishop, I think you said, in New Mexico, citing Vatican II as the impetus here. I want to understand something here. If that is, I mean, I pretty much reject anything from Vatican II, and frankly, following Vatican II as well as binding on anything that I'm obliged to believe, but that's my own personal choice. I wouldn't say all Catholics have to do that, but it is definitely what I do. But even from what I understand about the post-conciliar Catholic Church here, where does the prudential judgment issue come in here for the laity? Because my understanding of Vatican II is the prioritization of leaving the political sphere to the laity. The temporal sphere is the renewal of the temporal sphere is the special responsibility of the laity. Surely, therefore, whether it is prudential or not to build a mosque is a decision for the laity, rather than for bishops, unless we're going to retreat into the dreaded clericalism that the Second Vatican Council sought to abolish, and leave the political decisions to our priests and bishops. Even trying to give them good faith here, I can't. I always draw the conclusion, no, they are acting in bad faith. How, on the one hand, can you help me balance this? Frank Walker, you're probably the wrong person to help me balance this, but can you try to help balance this? How, on the one hand, can they insist on pulling the Catholic Church out of the political sphere and say, no, we're doing this because the political sphere belongs to the laity, on the one hand, and then on the other hand, on every single opportunity that there is for a prudential issue, the Catholic Church sort of pushes everyone out the way, leaps to the front of the stage, says, no, let us make this decision. This building of the mosque is a prudential issue. It's not necessary for the Church to intervene here with its opinions. Am I right or wrong on that?
Well, yeah, but I think that you should look at society as having a Christian framework first. I mean, you can't make a prudential decision if you really don't have any faith. And you're right about Vatican II. Vatican II has some bad things and some good things in it. They selectively pull out what they want to use, and they weaponize it. They make it into a law. So you can't separate a culture. You know, they're saying these mosques, they're just a cultural center, not a mosque, but cult means religion, the word cult. And you can't separate religion from the way that you live, from your decisions about right and wrong. And this whole idea is not a Catholic idea. This is something that was generated from a different culture, an anti-Catholic culture that developed over the last couple hundred years and became part of America to some extent. So no, they're not going to leave you the room to make your decision. Instead, in the opposite, they're going to weaponize little selected items from Vatican II, and they're going to turn it into law against you. You know, in Florida, they have a law that says that schools can not make you take what I call the death vaccine. And the bishops are saying, wait a minute, because the bishops won't enforce that law. You can't say, well, that the vaccine has abortion in it and it's dangerous and abortion-related vaccine. No, you're not allowed to do that if you're a Catholic school student now. So the bishops are actually working for the wrong side and the anti-Catholic side, and it's the people themselves that are actually saying we have that right and the law has that right. But then they go back and they say, no, it's our religious freedom. You're impacting on us. We're bishops. It doesn't matter what these Catholics say. What matters is what Leo and Francis and these bishops say. That's the religious freedom. They weaponize Vatican II.
Their insistence is only on the things that don't pertain to the Catholic faith. To the things that are actually essential and obligatory on Catholics, the bishops are all, no, we'll leave this all to your own conscience, do what you will. So you can really see, this is why we say on the show constantly, the Catholic Church has been hijacked by, the institutional Catholic Church has been hijacked by a band of usurpers who hate the Catholic faith and they hate Catholics. Back with Frank Walker and Jenny Holland in 2 minutes after this short commercial break. Don't go away, folks.
Still America's Voice family.
Are you on Getter yet? No?
What are you waiting for?
It's free.
It's uncensored, and it's where all the biggest voices in conservative media are speaking out.
Download the Getter app right now. It's totally free. It's where I put up exclusively all of my content 24 hours a day. You want to know what Steve Bannon's thinking? Go to Getter.
That's right. You can follow all of your favorites. Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec,
and so many more.
Download the Getter app now.
Sign up for free and be part of the movement.
Welcome back. Well, English Catholics, long-suffering English Catholics have long been aware that there's only one thing worse than the pill, and that's the tablet. Tablet being the establishment, liberal, poison magazine read by all the bishops and all the priests. 20 years ago, it was basically in dissent. Of course, now, at least from the papacies of the late unlamented Bergoglio onwards, it's now the reigning orthodoxy, and the tablet is therefore the natural vehicle for some gloating on behalf of the modernist hierarchs. Frank Walker is an article that I know you've been following also on Canon 212. In this article, Cardinal Roche, there, known to English Catholics as Cock-Roche, Cardinal Roche, they're gloating that Pope Leo has given him every indication. I mean, I'm assuming as prefect of the Congregation for Divine Worship, or whatever its new name is. I can't be bothered to remember the new name that they've changed all these things to. But as prefect, and a notorious modernist, a really quite notorious modernist, he's gloating that Leo is not going to repeal, undo, cancel the Traditionis Custodes decree of Bergoglio, effectively binding the traditional Latin Mass reducing the liberties that Pope Benedict in Summorum Pontificum had given, some 20 or so years ago. Without going into the weeds on this one, I was particularly interested in this article because it's a bit of a hammer blow to Trad Inc. and it's just give Leo time, agenda. He's really conservative. He's really doing what he can through small, moderate moves ahead. Seems to the Trad Inc. line, and of course the Trad Inc.'s famous motto, as always, is "and don't forget to donate." It seems to me that Cock-Roche here has blown Trad Inc. out of the water on that one. What did he say to the tablet, and why? I know you was horrified by it, not surprised, but you was horrified by it as I was.
Yeah, because he's really such a nasty guy. He really is. It shows you that they're lying to us and pretending that they care about the church because he's so careful about the way that he lies and confusing people. And so the Trad Inc., they had a fit this week. They just couldn't believe. They just had to lie. Cardinal Roche doesn't know that Leo's going to not give back the ancient mass. No, that's not Vatican procedure. That's a totally different thing. It has nothing to do with Leo. Leo thinks. Leo listens. That's what they would say. But this Cardinal Roche, he brought the actual goods, and he to me, he strikes me as a very scary guy. He lets the guy at the tablet, he said, "Go ahead, give it a go, twirl around in my chair. You can almost pat the dome of St. Peter's with all my power here. You can see the Rome from all the windows around." And he said, these people, how can they say that we are against the church? It's so hateful. It's so hateful. We're haters. That's a cultural Marxist term. And he said the Vatican Council required us to have this special.
Let me answer that. Let me answer that, because we hate them, right? They are not. There is some shorthand here that we all do occasionally. But these people are not the church. These are usurpers. They are not the church. Even if they were legitimate bishops, legitimate cardinals and legitimate popes, they would still not be the church. The church is the mystical body of Jesus Christ. It doesn't belong to the bishops, doesn't belong to the pope, doesn't belong even to the laity. The church is the mystical. The Catholic Church is the mystical body of Jesus Christ. And of course, people have different roles and participate in the life of the church in different ways according to their office. But we don't hate the church. We hate these people and their daily betrayal of the church, right?
They're the enemies of the church, yeah. Now this new mass, Eucharist, nourishes people differently now. They said, I find that so repulsive because the Eucharist is God. Catholics believe that the Blessed Sacrament becomes Jesus. And so it's God. It's not like this nourisher. It's like they constantly, and gives us a better diet of Scripture. And he brings it to the people. These are all the things he said. And he said, the Vatican is not an ivory tower. He lets the communist backing of the new mass in this interview come out because we're all of the people. Francis wanted to be with the peoples before he died. And he said, my job is mainly to receive the bishops. And they come to him about their liturgy things, and that he just cracks the whip on them. He says, and I love the people from the poor countries. They have a sparkle in their eye because they're from the poor countries. That if you come to Cardinal Roche here and you don't have a sparkle in your eye, you're in a lot of trouble. That's what it really is all about. I mean, he's a frightening cardinal. So he says a practicing Catholic is someone who goes to Mass, but he said that, there's difficulties, and when they don't go to Mass, they begin to fall away. He reveals that he's not really Catholic. No, you go to Mass every week or you're in mortal sin, and if you don't go, you have fallen away. And he says that sometimes he wonders about God and about some of the things that happen. Well, that means he doesn't have the faith. And he said Humana Vitae, which upheld contraception, it led a whole new understanding of human sexuality. Humana Vitae let everybody know that contraception was discussable, and it made sex about about love and unity instead of about children and the law of marriage. So you can read through the lines that this guy is not a Catholic, and like you're saying here, Catholic, they're faking us. And because since we've lost Europe is our backing, and we lost the whole church. So on both sides of the pond, we don't know who we are. So we're susceptible to these liars, both in Islam and these frauds in the church, because we don't know who we are anymore.
I want to come to this point, right? Exactly this point is the cant and the hypocrisy of again, you try to give people good faith and assume that they're arguing from a good faith, but you go just to like a teeny bit of second order thinking on what they're saying, and you realize it's just pure deception. What he makes his argument that the Second Vatican Council required the church to become more missionary, right?
Right.
How can anybody in good faith make this argument? The missionary aspect of the church, the reason why the church expanded outside of Jerusalem, basically, Galilee, the reason why is because the church was missionary. The church was missionary from the Great Commission of Jesus Christ onwards, before, just literally before he ascended to heaven. It's why, from the invention, the discovery of sea travel and ocean going boats, at the moment mankind was able to put a mast and a sail on a boat and go beyond short distances and to cross seas, they took priests and religious with them for that missionary purpose. And all the colonialization was also part and parcel of the evangelical missionary impetus.
Right.
That's what happened for 1,962 years of the church. After the Second Vatican Council, everything that had been missionized everything that had been evangelized by the missionaries in the previous 1,962 years then started to undo and to unwind. So you have the situation which we're going to discuss with Jenny just in a couple of minutes, that you have huge swathes of Latin America, which is like the fortress of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, all of South America, of Latin America, was Catholic up until the Second Vatican Council. It's now all Protestant, basically. The Pentecostals are just making hay there. This is the cant of what Cock-Roche is saying. He's saying, oh no. The Second Vatican Council wanted the church to be missionary, as if it wasn't before, and as if it is now. All you have in the last 65 years of the post-conciliar missionary impetus is implosion, collapse, and failure.
Collapse is what they must have. They must have that collapse, and that's what the Mass is. That new Mass is about collapse, and that's what you're going to hear about next. The death is what they're talking about when they say missionary. There one priest in Pamplona, the canon in Pamplona, he got in all kinds of trouble this week because he said, we need to finish what Isabella didn't finish in Spain. And that meant, like you mentioned, Isabella sent Columbus over in the name of St. Paul to take the Western Hemisphere and make it Catholic. That was what you're talking about. And that's what this poor canon who's going to get fired now is talking about.
So it's impossible to treat these utterances by these Vatican II fanatics with good faith, because it's just sheer deception. All right, okay. So now we'll just a couple of minutes. We'll discuss this great story which I've been sitting on for the last few days. Can't wait to go through this with Jenny. First, however, most Americans are forced to spend too much money on healthcare and getting too little in return. If you're one of the millions frustrated by traditional health insurance, the war room wants to tell you about America's health share. Go to freedomforhealth.org/Bannon and discover why tens of thousands of patriots are joining America's health share. America's health share reduces your health costs by an average of 60%, and is accepted everywhere. So say goodbye to out-of-network limitations. once again, for as low as $68 per month, by the way, you can get their great health coverage. Go to freedomforhealth.org/Bannon to learn more. It's time to make America healthy. That's freedomforhealth.org/Bannon and promo code Bannon as well. And I said in the first half of the show, if you want to speak to Philip Patrick and his team right now, gold is at extremely competitive prices right now. All gold speculators are expecting the price to go back up, by the way, from $4,000 an ounce as it is at the moment up to $4,500. Text Bannon, BANNON, to Birch Gold Group, speak to Philip Patrick and his team and ask him why the Vatican, for example, is investing heavily in gold right now. The Vatican that thinks in centuries. All right, not much thinking in centuries right now. That said, when it comes to assets, property, when it comes to gold portfolio, the Vatican Bank, it thinks in centuries. When it comes to the matters of the faith and the things that it exists to do to shuffle the sheep towards salvation, not so much century-long thinking is to be witnessed. This article, I thought, in Axios was absolutely astonishing, because here we've been covering really throughout since we started the show in commemoration of Leo's ascent to the papacy. In fact, I should have put the scare quotes on ascent to the papacy. We've covered, in fact, Frank Walker and I covered just a couple of weeks ago how donations to the Vatican are down. Donations by Americans are down. So that was a busted flush, because that's what their great hope in Leo was supposed to be. Their great hope, by the way, in Bergoglio, his unlamented predecessor, was supposed to be, as an Argentinian, he was going to resist the inroads of Pentecostalism into Catholic Latin America and fight back in defense of the Catholic faith. That's what the gullible cardinals, those who were voting in good faith, thought that they were going to get. They didn't. They got the Marxist. But it would turn out that, seeing as really over recent decades, especially in view of the whole scale abandoning of the blue collar regular worker, the total abandonment of those by the fake bishop, fake pastors from Catholic Church's policies. The Catholic Church went big on Latinos, went really big. This is our future. It doesn't matter if the Midwest just gets so pissed off with us, they stop coming, because our future is in the Latin demographic. These are the Catholics. These are the guys who have come in. These will swell our abandoned churches and our collection plate offerings. Alas, no, because as I was saying, as Frank Walker has been detailing here on the War Room, collections, donations down in the post-Leo epoch, and down as well amongst the Latino demographic. Young Latinos, this is the Axios headline here, young Latinos are abandoning churches to be nuns. I thought this was an astonishing piece. The statistics are absolutely horrific. I'll just say this one and hand over to you, Jenny. Of the demographic between 18 and 29, which I know you write about on your Substack constantly, the share of Latino adults, this is according to Pew Research Center, the share of Latino adults identifying as Catholic plummeted from 67% in 2010 down to 43% in 2022. This is an implosion. What's there in Axios's reportage? We've got 2 minutes now. what's there in Axios's reportage, and what conclusion do you draw from it?
Yeah, so they reported also, these are from numbers from a public religion opinion kind of poll, that the 18 to 29 demographic in 2019, I think, was 18% of them said they were non-affiliated or religiously unaffiliated. And a more updated poll in 2023, I think, was, or more recently, was 23% claimed no affiliation. And this is, of course, Hispanics, Latin Americans and Hispanics have been so closely associated with Catholicism in our common culture. I think second only to maybe the Irish. You think of the Mexicans and you think of the abuelas and their devotion to the church, and that real sort of salt of the earth religious devotion that really kind of keeps traditions passed down from one generation to the next. And according to Axios, this is not the case any longer. Two of the factors that they attributed this to, one, I regret to say, but will not be surprised to say, is down to the women. The women are much more liberal. The women, I think, in fact, they actually say in this article that women are much more aligned with Latina women are much more aligned with LGBTQ++ ideology than they are with more conservative Catholic parishes where they are turning their backs on. And the other is assimilation. And I think actually assimilation is a very interesting problem, because obviously it's what we claimed in the liberal order, when the liberal order still functioned, that's what we wanted. We wanted assimilation, and it sounds great, right? But it seems to me that now, with a couple of generations of observations and data to work with, assimilation is a really double-edged sword. I mean, I just see a lot of young, very vocal, second-generation immigrants from a variety of different backgrounds. So this is kind of veering not strictly in the Catholic sphere, but just in the general patriotism and affiliation and allegiance to the United States sphere. There's a lot of discontent and a lot of anti-Americanism among second-generation children of immigrant families. This is really concerning, because I feel like it didn't. When I was growing up, it was Jenny, almost the reverse.
Jenny, you said that was discontent and anti-Americanism?
Yes.
All right. Okay. That's all we've got time for. Jenny, we'll pick up this the threads of this next Wednesday and continue to analyze it. It's very, very important. Very, very quickly, Jenny, 10 seconds. Where do people go on Substack to keep up with your writing?
JennyEHolland.substack.com.
Great. Frank Walker, where do people go on X and for Canon 212?
X is Canon 212 spelled out, and Canon 212 you can see it up in the address bar. And the daily update is at Rumble and at Glory TV.
And I'm on Ben_Harnwell on X. My thanks to Rob at Real America's Voice. Steve back at 10 a.m. tomorrow.